On the way to school, teenagers get their last-minute phone fix. Inside Ashfield Boys High in Sydney's inner west, mobiles are locked away all day.
Morning boys, phones away please.
Year 12 prefect Will Fraser remembers what it was like when students could keep their phones in their pocket and use them in the playground.
There used to be like little circles of like groups of people just either playing video games or like scrolling on TikTok, or even just like having an AirPod in and just like listening to music or watching something.
In New South Wales, a ban requires senior public school students to keep mobiles off and out of sight. But this school community decided to go a step further.
One of the reasons we decided to go with this locker solution was that very practical cognitive sense that if the phone is locked away, your brain stops thinking about it and it stops distracting your working memory when you're in class.
What came as a surprise was how quickly students not only got used to the lockers, but welcomed them.
You pay a lot more attention in class, I reckon. We had our phones, like people were just like checking, like, is anyone messaging me or what's happening?
You're paying attention to the teacher at the front, explaining the things to you and not trying to focus on when your phone buzzes.
Creating change inside and outside the classroom.
So when I'm at home, like I don't really check my phone that much.
I've enjoyed more board games now because I don't have the distraction of like, oh, I need to go on my phone.
We can really see a dramatic difference in the playground. We've had to roster different year groups onto our oval at different times because once the phones went, there was this massive flood of kids onto the oval to play, especially soccer.
The truth is, most of us are using devices like these every day. They're a part of modern life and something young people need to prepare for. But the question is, what is all this doing to developing brains? A recent Macquarie University study found primary school students are using screens for about 6.5 hours every day, while high school students are buried on devices for an average of 9 hours a day.
So far, there's been surprisingly little research to show whether extensive screen use is a good or bad thing when it comes to education.
We're living in an experiment that is happening in front of our eyes.
Dr. Martin Paulus is a principal investigator in America's largest long-term adolescent brain development study. He analysed associations between screen time and the growing brain.
But the key finding was that the kids that engaged in more screen media had a slightly greater thinning of brain areas that were important for sensory motor processing.
In a small subgroup of participants, he found less developed frontal lobes, which is linked to aggression and bullying. These children also reported more sleep problems and greater family conflict.
Those kids who had stronger relationships between screen media and these different brain areas that control emotion reactivity, they also had greater what we call externalization. Externalization refers to anger outbursts or tantrums and things of that nature.
Concerns over this great global experiment led the South Australian government to propose what became a national social media ban for children. Peter Malinauskas this month joined a forum at Adelaide's St Ignatius College, both as the Premier and as a parent of students who go there.
There is a long history of regulation and limitation of substances or services where we know it is definitively doing children harm, and we should not see this as being any different.
There is no doubt that the ubiquitous nature of technology in young people's lives is distracting them. It's distracting them at school, it's distracting them at home.
As a society, we have given young people an addictive substance, and we are watching in slow motion the damage that that's causing them. I think whether they know it or not, they need our help.
From next term, St Ignatius will launch Tech Smart Tuesdays. Students will be encouraged to put screens down and return to pen and paper.
We fundamentally believe that young people shouldn't be on a laptop or on a device for 6 hours of a school day, only to go home to spend more screen time in the evening.
I think that technology, unfortunately, even though it's really helpful with all of our education, it has rewired our brains to become more addicted, and then we lose all of that face-to-face personal connection, which is so important for developing in life.
And I feel like in classrooms, those discussions that you have where you actually shut your laptop screen, turn to the person next to you and talk about what you're doing, you get so much more out of what you're doing.
Now the Premier's considering rolling it out at all public schools.
The idea of removing technology altogether, including laptops and other forms of technology, for at least one day a week, we think has merit. And we're willing to assess that in the South Australian Government and see if we can't take another step of leadership in trying to get this balance right between young kids developing and enhancing skills around technology, but also making sure that's not at the expense of critical human skills that are achieved in the absence of technology.
All these outdoor table tennis tables.
Back at Ashfield, the principal says the tech-savvy approach has helped reap academic rewards.
We're a comprehensive school, we're not selective, and the boys are performing in the HSC each year like a selective school.
We feel much kinder to each other. I feel like we've learned to talk to each other a lot more. I feel like it's also improved our social skills, which will help in the long run a lot.
I feel like, especially with each other, we've made stronger friendships because we've learnt to have proper social skills instead of just being on our phones.